Welcome back to the deep dive. We are doing something a little different today. Usually when we talk about the medieval period, specifically that really gritty, dark stretch of the late 14th century, we're looking at it through the eyes of the guys with the swords,
Right.
the kings, the knights, the military strategists.
Standard blood and mud
Well,
narrative,
Exactly. It's the 100 Years' War. It's the aftermath of the Black Death. It is, by all accounts, a terrible time to be alive in France.
It's really awful time.
But today we are looking at this exact same period through a lens that, well, it feels like it shouldn't exist. We are looking at it through the eyes of a woman who didn't just survive this chaos, but actually shaped the political and intellectual landscape of Europe.
And she's a complete anomaly. I mean, if you look at the sociological data of the 1400s, Christine de Pizan is a statistical impossibility.
A statistical impossibility. I love that.
Yes, she's the first woman in Europe to make a living solely by her pen. We aren't talking about a nun writing in a cloister for the glory of God.
Yeah.
And we aren't talking about a queen writing letters. We are talking about a working mother, an immigrant, a widow, who built what was essentially a freelance publishing empire.
In the middle of a civil war.
In the middle of a civil war. It's insane.
That is the hook for me, the freelancer angle. Because when you dig into these sources, the biographies, the analysis of her manuscripts, you realize she feels incredibly modern.
So modern.
She's dealing with the gig economy, she's dealing with mansplaining, she's dealing with the glass ceiling, and she's doing it while the King of France is going mad and the English are invading.
It is, at its core, a survival story. We often categorize her as a feminist writer, and she certainly was that, perhaps the very first.
For sure.
But before she was an ideologue, she was a survivor. She used her intellect as a weapon because, well, it was the only thing she had left.
So our mission today is to unpack that weapon. We have a massive stack of notes here covering her entire bibliography, from her poetry to her military manuals and the historical records of her life.
It's a lot.
It is a lot. We're going to figure out how she pulled this off, how she managed to tell knights how to fight wars, and why in 2024 she was literally dipped in gold, rising out of the Seine at the Olympic opening ceremony.
It is quite the journey. And to understand how she ends up as a gold statue, you have to understand where she started, because she wasn't actually French.
Right.
She was an outsider from day one.
Right. Let's get into the origin story. She was born in Venice, is that correct?
Yes, in 1364, born Christine de Pizan. Her father, Tommaso di Benvenuto de Pizan, he was a very big deal in Venice.
Okay.
He was a physician, a counselor of the Republic, and crucially, a court astrologer.
And being an astrologer back then wasn't like writing horoscopes for the Sunday paper. This was serious science, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It was intertwined with medicine and governance. In the medieval worldview, the microcosm of the human body was directly linked to the macrocosm of the stars.
So it's all connected.
It's all connected. Kings relied on astrologers to make major political decisions, to determine the health of the state, even to time their military campaigns. And Tommaso, her father, was so good at it that he got headhunted.
Headhunted by kings. That's a good resume builder.
He was a bidding war, actually. The King of Hungary and King Charles V of France both wanted him.
And he chose France.
Tommaso chose France. So in 1368, when Christine was just a toddler, maybe 4 years old, the family packs up and moves to Paris.
Talk about a career upgrade, but also a massive culture shock, I'd imagine, moving from the Venetian Republic to the Kingdom of France.
It was a completely different world. But this move is crucial for understanding Christine. She grows up in the royal court of Charles V.
And this wasn't just any court.
No, this was an environment of intense intellectualism. Charles wasn't just a warrior king. He was known as Charles the Wise for a reason. He founded the Royal Library at the Louvre. He surrounded himself with translators, philosophers, scientists.
So she's growing up privileged, surrounded by books. But she's still a girl in the 14th century. Usually that means learning to sew, not learning to read Latin.
And this is where her father comes in. Tommaso was surprisingly progressive for his time. We have records that suggest a bit of tension in the household about this.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Christine's mother thought she should focus on the distaff duties. Spinning, weaving, managing a household, the traditional female curriculum.
The expected path.
The expected path. But Tommaso, he saw she was bright, he saw this spark in her, and he decided to give her access to the intellectual life of the court. He wanted her to have a real education.
That specific detail really stands out, the parent who breaks the mold. If Thomas hadn't insisted on that education, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Not at all.
She would have just been another anonymous medieval wife.
Precisely. That education was a dormant asset. She didn't need it immediately. She was being groomed for marriage after all, but it was being banked for later. She was reading the classics. She was learning Italian and French. She was just absorbing the political conversations of the court.
So she has this idyllic intellectual childhood, and then, as was the custom, she gets married.
Yes, in 1379, she was 15 years old. She marries a man named Etienne du Castel.
And usually in these historical deep dives, this is where we hear about the terrible arranged marriage to a much older, grumpy guy.
Yeah.
But that wasn't the case here, was it?
Surprisingly, no. By all accounts, it was a happy marriage, a love match even.
Wow.
Etienne was a royal secretary and notary, so he was also an educated man. He was on the rise at court. Christine writes about him later with genuine affection, calling him her sweet friend. They had 3 children together. It was good.
So at this point, her life seems set. She's a demoiselle of the court, comfortable, happy, married to a man she actually likes, with a father who is the king's right-hand man.
It was the dream. But as we know, the late Middle Ages rarely lets anyone stay comfortable for long.
No.
The 1380s arrive, and the wheel of fortune turns downward. Sharply.
We call it the triple tragedy in the outline. Let's walk through this because it's just hit after hit.
It really is. It starts in 1380 when King Charles V dies, her father's patron.
Okay, so that's a big deal for the family.
Huge deal. This is bad for Tommaso because he loses his primary protector and his source of income. The new king, Charles VI, is young, and the court dynamics change completely. Tommaso loses influence, and his salary becomes irregular.
The money starts drying up.
It does. Then, in 1388, Tommaso himself dies.
So the patriarch is gone. And apparently Tommaso was great at science but bad at finance.
He was terrible with money. He lived large while the money was coming in, the big intellectual at court. But he left very little savings. So suddenly, the safety net is fraying. Christine and her husband Etienne are now responsible for the whole extended family.
And then the knockout blow, 1389.
1389. Etienne de Castel goes on a mission to Beauvais with the king. An epidemic breaks out. It's likely the plague or similar fever.
It's always the plague.
It's always the plague.
Yep.
He contracts it and dies within days.
Just gone.
Gone. Suddenly, at age 25, Christine is a widow. But she's not just a widow. She is now the head of a household. She has 3 small children. She has her own widowed mother to support. And she has a niece living with them.
And no financial safety net.
Nothing.
This is where the story shifts from privileged court life to legal nightmare. I read that she spent years in court just trying to get the money her husband was owed.
That's right. For years, Etienne was a royal secretary, which meant the crown owed him back wages. Significant amounts of money.
So there's money out there that's technically hers?
Technically. But trying to collect that money as a widow was a bureaucratic hellscape. She was hit with lawsuits from people claiming Etienne owed them money. She talks about this in her writings, the sheer humiliation of having to navigate this male-dominated legal system where nobody took her seriously.
There's this specific imagery she uses later, describing herself waiting in anterooms, being sneered at by clerks, being given the runaround. It sounds absolutely exhausting.
She calls it a labyrinth. She had to learn property law on the fly. She was being cheated by asset managers who saw a young widow and thought, easy target.
Ugh.
She writes about having to play the damsel in distress to get anyone to listen to her, while privately she was hardening into steel. She had to become her own lawyer.
There's a specific detail in the records where the way she is addressed in documents changes.
Yes, it's so telling. In June 1389, there's a judgment concerning a lawsuit against her by the Archbishop of Sens. In it, she is formally called Demoiselle and widow of Etienne du Castel.
So her identity is now defined by loss.
It marks this stark transition. She is no longer defined by her father or her living husband. She is a woman alone, facing financial ruin.
And this is the catalyst. This is the moment where she decides, I have to do something. She didn't start writing because she just had so many creative ideas bursting out of her, right? She wrote to eat.
Exactly. It was a hustle, a desperate hustle. She needed income.
Yeah.
And she took stock and realized that the one asset she had, thanks to her father and her upbringing, was her education. She could write.
So let's talk about that hustle. Because becoming a professional writer in 14th century Paris isn't like uploading an ebook to Amazon.
Not even close.
How did the book trade actually work back then?
It was a very transitional period for books. We were moving from the era of, continuous rolls to the bound codex books as we recognize them today.
So actual books with pages.
Right. And there was a rising demand for these books among the nobility. They were building private libraries as status symbols. But there were no publishers in the modern sense. You needed a patron.
You needed a rich duke to pay you to write the book.
Precisely. It was a gift economy. You would write a book, have it beautifully bound and illustrated, and present it to a prince or a duke. In exchange, they were expected to give you a gift of money.
Oh, expected.
Expected. It wasn't a salary, it was a reward.
That sounds incredibly unstable. What if the duke didn't like it?
Oh,
Or just forgot to pay you?
That happened constantly. And Christine was incredibly savvy about this. She didn't just attach herself to one person. She realized the political landscape was volatile, so she maneuvered between different factions.
So she didn't put all her eggs in one basket.
No way. She wrote for the Duke of Orleans, she wrote for the Duke of Burgundy, she wrote for the Duke of Berry, she diversified her client base.
She was a freelancer.
She was the ultimate freelancer. And she knew how to market herself. This part is genius. She would take a work she had written, write a new prologue dedicating it to a specific duke, and present it to him as a gift.
And then?
Then she might take the very same text, write a different prologue for a different noble, and present it to them.
That is brilliant. Here you go, Duke Philip. I wrote this just for you. Just, ignore the fact that I gave a copy to Duke Louis last week.
Essentially, yes. It was about maximizing her intellectual property. And she started with what was popular. In 1393, she began writing love ballads.
Okay, so she starts with the pop hits.
Exactly. These were trendy, they were emotional, they caught the attention of the court. Her collection, Saint Ballades, was a hit. It was about a grieving widow, which was obviously autobiographical, but is stylized enough to be entertaining.
So she gets her foot in the door with the romance stuff, but she doesn't stay there. She quickly pivots to much more serious subjects. Philosophy, history, politics.
She realized that to be taken seriously and to secure the bigger payouts, she needed to write serious books. One of the works that really stands out from this early period is the letter of Othea to Hector.
L'Épître d'Océa à Hector.
Yes, this came out around 1400. And it's a fascinating text. It's a mix of mythology and statecraft.
What's the premise?
The premise is that Othea, the goddess of wisdom, is tutoring the Trojan hero Hector.
Okay, I see what she's doing there.
It's a Trojan horse,
Yeah.
pun intended. On the surface, it's a collection of mythological stories, very entertaining, very visual. But deeply, it's a treatise on how to be a good leader. And the gender dynamics are key here.
She's using a female goddess to teach a male hero how to be a leader.
Exactly. And the subtext is clear. Christine is Othea. She is the woman with the wisdom, teaching the men of the court how to govern. And she didn't just write the text. She managed the entire production.
Let's touch on that production aspect, because she wasn't just sitting alone in a room writing, she was running a business.
She was. By this point, she had scribes working for her to copy her texts. She hired illuminators, the artists who painted the gold leaf and the miniatures in the margins.
So she's like a general contractor for luxury goods.
That's a perfect way to put it. We know she employed a specific illuminator who art historians now call the master of the Épître d'Océa.
Wow.
She was incredibly particular about how the books looked because she knew the visual appeal was what sold them to the dukes.
That is such a boss move. She's running a production house. But while she's building this business, she also starts getting involved in some pretty heated literary beefs. We have to talk about the Romance of the Rose controversy.
Oh, yes. This is a defining moment for her. So, for context, the Romance of the Rose was the blockbuster of the Middle Ages.
Like the Harry Potter of its day.
Bigger, probably. It was started by Guillaume de Loris and finished by Jean de Meun. It had been around for over a century. Everyone read it.
But it wasn't exactly respectful toward women, was it?
Not at all, especially the second half written by Jean de Meun. It was a satire, yes, but it depicted women as seducers, as manipulative, as objects. It was deeply, deeply misogynistic. It used coarse language.
And the establishment loved it.
The intellectual elite defended it. It was a classic. It was an allegory.
Until Christine. In 1402, she basically calls it out. She says it's vulgar, immoral, and slanderous. And she's not just complaining to her friends. She takes this public.
She engages in a letter-writing campaign against some of the most powerful intellectuals in Paris, including royal secretaries like Jean Montreuil and Gantier Cole.
So these are the big dogs?
These were the literary bros of the 15th century. They were defending the book, saying it was satire, it was high art, and then Christine just didn't get it.
And they must have loved that, a woman telling them their favorite book is trash.
Oh, they were furious. Their responses are preserved, and they are so condescending. They basically pat her on the head and say, "Oh, you sweet little woman, you just don't have the intellect to understand Master Jean de Meun."
But she didn't back down.
No, she doubled down. She used this brilliant rhetorical strategy called antiphrasis.
Okay, what's that?
She would start by belittling her own style, saying, "Oh, I'm just a woman of small understanding. My pen is clumsy."
Disarming them?
Totally disarming them. And then she would dismantle their arguments with surgical precision. She cited the church fathers. She cited classical philosophy. She asked a very simple, cutting question. Does this book make men better? Does it make them more moral? No. It encourages them to treat women like cattle.
It's the Columbo method. Just one more thing, and then she destroys you.
It is. And Simone de Beauvoir later credited this moment, this debate, as the first time a woman publicly took up her pen in defense of her sex.
Wow.
It was the birth of the querelle des femmes, the woman question.
And this leads directly into her most famous work, The Book of the City of Ladies, published in 1405. This book is incredible. This is essentially a response to all that misogyny she was fighting.
It is. If the Romance of the Rose controversy was the battle, the City of Ladies was the fortress she built afterwards.
I love that analogy.
The concept is brilliant. Christine describes herself sitting in her study, just depressed. She's read so many books written by men saying that women are wicked and flawed, and she starts to internalize it. She wonders, is God a mistake maker? Why are women so terrible?
Which is heartbreaking, honestly, that feeling of the weight of the culture just crushing her self-esteem.
It is. But then, three allegorical figures appear to her: reason, rectitude, and justice.
The dream team.
The dream team. These three luminous ladies tell her, Christine, wake up. These men are wrong, and we are going to help you build a city.
A literal city.
A symbolic city. A fortress built to protect and appreciate women. And the building blocks of this city are the stories of great women from history.
So she's building it out of stories.
Yes. She goes through history, biblical, classical, contemporary, and pulls out every example of a strong, virtuous, intelligent woman she can find.
She brings in everyone. Saints, queens, warriors. And she engages in some amazing revisionist history. My favorite example is Medusa.
Oh, the Medusa bit is crucial. Because usually Medusa is the monster, right? Snakes for hair, turns men to stone.
Right. A villain to be slain by Perseus, the ultimate monster.
Christine reimagines her. She portrays Medusa not as a monster, but as a beautiful woman who was harmed by men and whose story was twisted by them.
How does she explain the whole turning men to stone thing?
She argues that her power was actually just her incredible beauty and intellect that stunned men into silence. They were petrified by her brilliance.
She completely flips the script.
Completely. She argues that the only reason negative stereotypes about women persist is because women have been excluded from the conversation.
If you don't write your own history, someone else will write it for you.
Exactly. And she uses theological arguments, too. She says men and women are both created in God's image, so they both have souls capable of goodness. It was a systematic dismantling of sexism using the very religious and logical tools that men use to enforce it.
And she didn't just leave it at high-level allegory. She also wrote a sequel, right? A more practical guide.
Yes. The Treasure of the City of Ladies, also known as the Book of Three Virtues.
And what was that one about?
This is the practical guide. If City Ladies was the theory, Treasure was the practice. It was advice for women of all estates. Princesses, merchants' wives, peasants.
All estates, so not just for the nobility.
No, that's what's so important. She's talking to everyone.
What kind of advice?
How to survive. How to manage your money. How to deal with your husband, how to navigate the social perils of the 15th century. She was very pragmatic. For example, she told wives of merchants to understand their husband's business accounts.
Oh, that's smart.
She said, don't just leave it to him. If he dies, you need to know where the money is. She was speaking from her own traumatic experience.
Of course. And she was a huge advocate for education.
A massive advocate. She explicitly argued that if you sent little girls to school and taught them the same subjects as boys, they would learn just as fully.
Which was a radical statement in 1405.
Hugely radical. She was arguing for nurture in a world that believed everything was about nature.
She also practiced what she preached regarding female competence. In the text, she mentions a female manuscript illustrator named Anastasia.
Yes, this is such a great detail. She describes Anastasia as the most talented illustrator of her day, specifically for painting flower borders and backgrounds in manuscripts.
She's giving another professional woman a shout-out.
It's a lovely moment of professional solidarity. Christine is making sure that another talented woman's name is recorded in history.
So she's firmly established as this intellectual heavyweight. She's the voice of women in Europe. But the world outside her study is getting worse.
Much worse.
France is sliding into chaos.
It was. And you really have to understand the political context to get her later work. King Charles VI, the son of the wise king she grew up with, was suffering from severe mental health crises.
This is the king who thought he was made of glass.
Yes. He would have these breakdowns where he didn't know who he was or he thought he was made of glass and would shatter if touched.
A glass king. That is a terrifying metaphor for the state of the nation.
It created a massive power vacuum. And when there's a vacuum, people rush to fill it. Specifically, two rival factions of the royal family.
The Armagnacs and the Burgundians.
Exactly. It was essentially a civil war between the king's brother, Louis of Orleans, and the king's cousin, John the Fearless of Burgundy.
And Christina's right in the middle of this. She knows these men. They are her patrons.
She was terrified. She viewed France as this sacred entity founded by Trojan descendants. She wanted stability above all else. She believed in a strong monarchy.
So she pivots again.
She stops writing just about women and starts writing political theory.
In 1407, she writes The Book of the Body Politic.
Right, and here she uses that classic medieval metaphor of the body to explain society. The king is the head, the nobles are the arms, the people are the legs.
And the message is?
The message is that for the body to function, every part needs to do its job. If the arms attack the head, the body dies. She favored hereditary monarchy because she looked at the Italian city-states, which were more republican or run by guilds, and she thought, that's chaotic. That's not profitable for the common good.
She wanted order above all else.
She was desperate for order. In 1407, things got much worse. John the Fearless had Louis of Orleans assassinated in the streets of Paris.
Wow, just out in the open.
Out in the open. The Cold War turned hot. So Christine wrote the Book of Peace in 1413, addressing the Dauphin, the heir to the throne, urging him to end the civil war. She quotes the Bible, "Every kingdom divided in itself will be made desolate."
But the peace didn't hold, and this leads to what I think is the most surprising part of her entire bibliography. She writes a manual on warfare.
The Book of Feats of Arms and of Chivalry, published in 1410.
A woman writing a manual on how to wage war. In 1410, that seems wildly out of her lane.
It is audacious, so audacious. And she acknowledges that in the preface. She apologizes to Minerva, the goddess of war, basically saying, I know I'm a woman, but I have to do this because the men are doing it wrong.
I love that. So how did she even know this stuff? She's never held a sword.
She was a researcher, a meticulous researcher. She interviewed knights. She read the classical texts, specifically Vigetius's De Re Militari, which was the standard Roman military text.
So she did her homework.
She did. But she didn't just translate Vigetius. She updated him for her time. She wrote about modern siege warfare, about the use of cannons, about logistics and supply lines.
What kind of stuff is she covering? Is it just hit them with the pointy end?
Oh no, it's sophisticated.
Yeah.
She discusses the just war theory, the idea that war should only be waged by sovereign kings to protect their subjects or execute justice.
So not for personal gain.
Right. It cannot be for personal gain or vengeance.
Yeah.
And she talks about the laws of war, how to treat prisoners, why you shouldn't kill non-combatants.
She even had opinions on trial by combat, right?
She hated it. She opposed trial by combat because she didn't believe that winning a fight proved you were right. It just proved you were stronger or luckier.
That's a very logical modern take.
It is. She was very practical. She admitted that war involves, and I'm quoting here, raping, killings, forced executions, and arsons. She didn't romanticize it, even though she was writing about chivalry. She saw it as a grim necessity that needed strict regulation.
Now, here is a detail that made me angry when I read it. This book was good. It was useful. It was so useful that it was printed and used for a long time, but her name didn't always stay on it.
This is a classic example of erasure. It's infuriating. The book was printed later in the 15th century by a publisher named Antoine Verrar, and in some editions, Verrar just stripped her name off it. Or, even worse, he would claim it was a translation of a male author.
Because, God forbid, a knight takes military advice from a woman.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Even William Caxton, the famous English printer, published it in 1489 for King Henry VII. It was considered a standard manual. But the fact that a woman wrote it was often obscured because it undermined the authority of the text in the eyes of men. They wanted the knowledge, but not the author.
Ugh. So she tries to save France with her pen. She writes about peace, she writes about war, but the situation in France just keeps getting worse.
It does. It gets much, much worse. In 1415, the French suffer a devastating defeat at the Battle of Agincourt against the English.
Agincourt.
A generation of French nobility is wiped out by English longbows. The mud, the blood, it was a national catastrophe.
And Christine is getting older at this point. She's seen decades of this endless war and chaos.
She's tired. You can feel it in her writing. In 1418, she publishes letter concerning the prison of human life. The tone here is very different from her earlier work.
How so?
It's pessimistic, deeply pessimistic. She views the soul as being trapped in the body, trapped in this hellish existence on Earth. It was written as a consolation for women who had lost family members in the war, but you can feel her own despair bleeding through.
And then the war comes to her doorstep, literally.
In 1418, the Burgundians capture Paris. It's a bloodbath in the streets. Christine flees.
Where does she go?
Historians believe she retreated to the Dominican convent of Poissy. Her daughter was a nun there. And she effectively retires from public life. She stops writing.
She just goes silent.
For 11 years. Paris is occupied by the English. The Burgundians have taken over. It seems like everything she fought for is lost.
Silence for 11 years. She's in the convent watching her country fall apart. The King of Bourges, the disinherited Dauphin, is hiding in the south. It looks like the end of France.
It really does.
But then, 1429.
A miracle happens, or at least what Christine perceives as a miracle. A young peasant girl from nowhere named Joan of Arc appears.
Joan of Arc.
She claims to hear voices from God. She convinces the Dauphin to give her an army. She lifts the siege of Orléans. It's an unbelievable turn of events.
And Christine picks up her pen one last time.
She does. After 11 years of silence, she breaks it to write The Tale of Joan of Arc, or Didier de Jeanne d'Arc. And she gets it published just days after Charles VII's coronation in Reims, which Joan made happen.
What's the vibe of this last work? Is she still pessimistic?
Not at all. The optimism is back with a vengeance. She is ecstatic. She sees Joan as the fulfillment of ancient prophecies. From Merlin, the Sibyl, Bede.
She sees her as a destined savior.
Yes. But more importantly, she sees Joan as the ultimate validation of her life's work.
It's poetic, isn't it? The first professional woman writer ends her career by celebrating the first female military leader to save France.
It is the perfect bookend to her life. It's almost too perfect, she writes. What honor for the female sex. It is perfectly obvious that God has especially chosen her. She felt vindicated. All those arguments she made in the City of Ladies about women being capable of greatness. Joan was the living proof. A woman doing what all the men could not.
Sadly, Christine didn't live to see the end of Joan's story.
No. Christine died around 1430. Joan was captured and executed in 1431.
So Christine likely died believing that Joan had won and that France was saved.
It seems so. She missed the tragic ending, which is perhaps a small mercy. She died with hope.
So Christine passes away. But her books did die with her. Let's talk about her legacy. She wasn't just forgotten, was she?
Not immediately, no. Her advice books remained in print until the 16th century. Powerful women read them.
Like who?
Anne of France, who was regent, used Christine's work as a guide. Queen Elizabeth I of England, one of the most powerful women in history, had copies of the City of Ladies and Feats of Arms in her library.
I read that Elizabeth I even had tapestries featuring scenes from the City of Ladies.
She did. Imagine that. Visuals of a city built by women hanging on the walls of the Virgin Queen. That is direct influence. Christine helped shape the queens who came after her.
But then as time goes on, the erasure starts to happen.
It does. As we moved into the 17th and 18th centuries, the Enlightenment, the literary canon, narrowed, and women were pushed out of the history of political thought.
So how was she remembered?
Christine was dismissed. She was labeled a blue-stocking, a minor poet, or just a curiosity. You know, oh, look, a medieval woman who could write. How quaint. Her political and military insights were completely ignored.
Until the modern era.
The revival really kicks off in the 20th century. You have scholars like Mathilde Legel and later, of course, Simone de Beauvoir rediscovering her.
And Judy Chicago?
Yes. Judy Chicago, in her famous artwork The Dinner Party in 1979, gave Christine a place setting at the table. Scholars started to realize, wait, this isn't just a poet. This is a political theorist. This is a military strategist.
And we have to mention the 2024 Paris Olympics, because that felt like a huge mainstream moment for her.
It was. That was such a huge moment. During the opening ceremony, there was that segment honoring 10 pioneering French women with gold statues rising out of the Seine. And Christine de Pizan was one of them, holding her books.
From a convent in Poissy to a gold statue in front of the whole world, that is quite a journey.
It is. And it validates her mission in a way. She wanted to be remembered. She wanted women to be remembered. She built the City of Ladies so that women wouldn't be forgotten. And in the end, she became the cornerstone of that city.
So let's unpack this. What does all this mean for us today? What's the big takeaway?
I think the biggest takeaway is her resilience and her use of intellect as a weapon. She was in a hostile world, legally, financially, culturally. She didn't have a sword. She didn't have political office. She had a pen.
And she wasn't afraid to use it.
And she used it to carve out a space for herself and for other women.
She forced the men of her time to listen to her. She engaged them on their own turf theology, law, military strategy, and she beat them at their own game.
And she recognized the power of storytelling. She understood that if you let a culture tell you that you are less than for long enough, you start to believe it.
The way she almost did at the start of City of Ladies.
Exactly. So she created a counter-narrative. The City of Ladies was a safe space for the female mind. She showed that representation matters.
It really makes you think about the stories we tell today.
It absolutely does.
Okay, I have a thought experiment for you and for everyone listening. Christine built her City of Ladies using the figures of her time saints, mythological queens, Amazons.
Right. Her heroes.
If we were to build a modern City of Ladies today, an allegorical city to protect and validate the contributions of women, or really any marginalized group, who would be our architects? Who are the modern reason, rectitude, and justice?
That is a powerful question. And, to build on that, does the fact that she had to reimagine Medusa, to take a figure known as a monster, and reveal her as a survivor, does that sound familiar?
It sounds incredibly familiar.
We are still having these cultural conversations today about how we treat women in media, how we interpret their stories. Think of movies like Wicked or Maleficent telling the story from the witch's perspective. Christine de Pizan started that conversation 600 years ago.
She certainly did. And that is where we are going to leave it for today. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the life of the incredible Christine de Pizan.
Keep reading, keep questioning.
See you next time.